In this video, I'm going to continue talking about working with images and text in InDesign. I already made a print of this one page that I'm working on, and I've identified some things that I'd like to change. Before I get into that, though, I want to talk a little bit about the way that images are brought into InDesign. So one thing you may have noticed on the frames, there's this little link symbol, meaning that these images are linked to the file. They're not actually residing in it, or they're not exactly embedded in it. If I go over to the right here and click on the links icon, what I see are a bunch of all the files that I've brought into this page, all the images rather that I've brought into this page. And right now they're linked. All right, I can embed them in this file, but there's perhaps some reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. One reason to do it is that you don't have to worry about keeping all the files together. I could move my InDesign file to another folder or copy it to another machine, and it's going to have all of the images within it. But the problem is that the InDesign file can get really big. And there's also some other features that I can't do if I have them embedded. Having them linked can be advantageous for those reasons that I'll go into shortly. So right now, this file is about 3,800 kilobytes. There's not a lot of pages in here. There's not a lot of content in here. It's a relatively small file. And it's also small by size, this 3,800 kilobytes, because these images, again, they're not residing in the file. They're simply linked to it. So to show a little bit more about what the impact of this would be, I'm going to save this file, give it another name. And then what I'm going to do is go over here and begin clicking on these images. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go embed link. So you'll notice that the link symbol is no longer there. And I think I can do all of these in multiple or in the same pass. Again, I can embed the link and I can embed basically all of them. So let's pan over here a little bit. I'm going to hold down the control key, shift key. And I've selected all three of those. I'll right click and embed the link. Right now I'm going to save this file. So this is the screenshot of my my folder. There's the first file that I made, and this is the second one. Take a look at the size of these two files. By just embedding those images, look how much bigger it got so quickly. So again, this is a reason why you might want to consider linking them and maintaining them linked. And one thing you just have to remember is that if you move them to another computer, you have to move everything. You need to move the InDesign file and all of the images that are linked to it. Okay, so I'm going to close this file that I made and go back to the other one that I had created. Okay, so I'm back in the one that I had made, and this one does not have these embedded images. They're still maintained as links. So another advantage I have in maintaining them as links is I can see here that I need to make some changes to this. I can make those changes in Photoshop and relink them, and they will update. So I won't have to sort of reinsert them after I make changes. So this is, again, another advantage of working with these linked files. Now, one thing I had noticed is that the background tone is a little bit different in these three images, and I'd like to bring them closer together. I also noticed that there's some smudges in some of them, and I'd like to remove those smudges. So I'm going to open up this file in Photoshop. I'm going to make some changes. Maybe I'll start with this one down here at the bottom, and then I'll come back to InDesign and relink it. Okay, I've brightened the sky a little bit and I removed some of the smudges in the sky. Now what I'm going to do is bring it back into or relink it to the InDesign file. I have to make sure that I save the file before I proceed with that process. So back in the InDesign file, I'm going to open those links again. The name of the file is down here. I'm going to right click and relink. So I can browse to find it. It had to resave it. It didn't save the changes. So now what you can see here is that there's this exclamation point, meaning that something has changed with the original image. So now I'll go ahead and relink and find that image, and you can see it's brightened up. Now I'll change the view to display performance, high quality display, so more of the detail. It still is a little bit darker than I would like it, but it's a little brighter than it was. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to make a few changes to these 3 images, and then I will update those links, and I'll show you what that might look like. So I had to close my InDesign file, and now I've reopened it. This is after having edited those Photoshop files. So one thing that you'll see if this is something that you do is that you'll be given an opportunity to update the modified links. Okay, so I did do that. All right, so they're a little bit closer. I might make a few other changes to these. I'd like to maybe bring the crop window down a little bit lower so I have more space for these other images. So I'll just grab this and drag it down a little bit lower, crop out some of that sky. It seems to be too much of the image. And I'll continue to make a few other changes. All right, so I've made a few adjustments to some of the images and changed some alignments and kind of zoomed in a little bit more on some of them. I'm going to make some changes to the text here. I think that the font size is maybe a little too big. It'd be easy to read it, but I think it takes up too much space. So I'm going to drop it down to 10-point font. Another change I'm going to make involves changing the parent. I'm going to take this page number and align it with my margin. So I'll go to Pages, and this is the A parent. So I will take this text and I will drop it down a little bit. I also am going to increase the size of the section title text. So I'll take that and I will increase its size under the properties. You can use the arrow key if that allows you to kind of visualize things a little bit better. Okay. And I'm also going to change the color of that font. So I will highlight the text. I'm under properties here. I'm going to go to the text tool, and I am going to reassign, actually maybe we'll create a new swatch. It says black copy here. I'm going to bring these down to a gray tone. So I'll use the RGB hex codes for doing this. Black is 000000, 6 zeros. White is FFFFF, 6 Fs. And anywhere in between that with 6 characters going across is going to be a gray. So I'm going to try a, let's try BBBBBB. That's the gray that I'll get for that. And I'm going to say, okay. And I ended up, okay, there we go. I think we may need to bold this so it reads a little bit more clearly. Okay, so that was a change to the parent. So I'm going to go back to the page I was working on. And as you can see, that font has been updated and the page number is now in the lower left corner. I noticed that the one of the sketches seemed to have a kind of yellowish tone and the others didn't. So in Photoshop, I went to adjustments, or I went to mode rather, and I changed it to a grayscale. So now it should match the others a little bit better. So I I updated this file, and you can see the colors are a little bit closer to each other. I also made this a little smaller because I felt like it was a bit crowded, and I wanted to kind of separate this kind of work from these more architectural examples. So I'm going to go ahead and print this to PDF and have a look at it. So here's the latest PDF, and I still feel like there's a little bit of a tone difference between some of these images. So I'm going to go into this one and brighten it a little bit so that the backgrounds match. Okay, so it's a little bit closer. One thing you'll notice that I still have the display set to typical display, not the high quality one. But even though I have this setting, when I printed it out in the high quality. So when I go to that page, you can see I'm getting all the detail that I had in the original images.